You knew you were going to be wearing a lot of hats as a freelancer, but you might not have realized that you also have to do your own accounting. And that means sending invoices, at least in the beginning. An invoice is a legally binding document that details exactly how much your client owes and when it's due, so it's important to get it right. My name is Janessa, and I've been a freelance digital marketer since 2018 when I quit my job to build my dream business using skills I learned on the internet. Since then, I've gone on to make multiple six figures and build a business I love, and now it's my mission to help other freelancers learn the skills they need to bootstrap their way to success. That includes the nitty-gritty details of running a business like sending invoices. I'll be honest, I remember being pretty mystified by this whole idea of sending invoices in the beginning, so I wanted to make this video so you didn't get tripped up in the same areas that I did with things like what needs to be included in an invoice and how do you actually send it to the client. Now, I'm going to talk about what needs to be included in an invoice and even show you how to create one later in this episode. But first things first, you have to find the right tool for the job. Now, you have several options for tools that you can use to send an invoice. And the good news is that a lot of them are free or really low cost. For example, Google Docs has a free invoice template. And if you are using a tool like PayPal or Stripe to process your payments, they also have invoicing features. With accounting software like QuickBooks, you can also send invoices that way. Obviously, tools like that aren't free, but if you're already using a tool like QuickBooks or another accounting software, you can lean on that for your invoicing needs. Now, I've actually used all of these methods, but I kept running into limitations with certain features that I needed as a service provider. And that's what led me to another tool called Dubsado. Dubsado is a business management tool that makes it easy to keep things like invoices and contracts organized all in one place. And I was really excited that Dubsado had features like the ability to set up recurring invoices so that I didn't have to go into my accounting tool every month for my retainer clients. They just automatically send once I set it up. Clients can set up auto pay as well, which some of my clients have loved taking advantage of. And I also like that you can set up workflows, which is basically where you can set up a trigger when something happens, like say a client sends a contract, that it will automatically send the invoice to them. So there's just a lot less manual work on your end, which when you are a freelancer or a solopreneur is super helpful. And something else Dubsado has that I kept not finding in other tools was really flexible ways to split payments. So let's say you have a project that requires a 20% down payment and 40%, and then the remaining 40% later on, just as an example, you can set that up. You can set it up to split any way, and it's really simple. It makes it really easy for you and the client to see exactly what's going on. And if you are billing by the hour, Dubsado has a time tracker feature that will automatically add the hours to the invoice, so there's more manual work off your plate. Okay, enough gushing about Dubsado. You're probably wondering two main things. Number one, is it free? And yes, Dubsado has a free trial, but it's not your typical free trial. You actually get to use it for an unlimited amount of time for 3 clients or up to 3 clients. So you can try it out for your first few clients and make sure that it's right for you. And second, you're probably wondering, how the heck do I use Dubsado to create an invoice? So I'm going to walk you through creating a basic invoice in Dubsado. Let's go. Okay, so I am in my Dubsado dashboard and I have created a test client and a test project, and we're going to send a pretend test invoice here. So I'm going to go up here to invoices in the top menu, and you'll see this is my invoice list, but there's nothing here because we haven't created an invoice. So I'm going to go over here to add. And this has created the invoice. Now you can give your invoice a title. I'm just going to call this test invoice. I typically, for example, for retainers, will give this the name of the month and the year, like December 2023 for that month's invoice, for example. And you're going to leave, usually the number is going to be left alone because it's automatically generating that. And then the date is the date that you are creating or sending the invoice. So you could adjust that if you need to. Now, what we want to do is create a new line item. So the line item is going to be the item on the invoice, whatever it may be. So I'll say new line item. And Dubsado does have the option to create packages. So if you have the same packages that you're offering to your clients, you can automatically program them in here. But just for the sake of this example, we'll say test item or test service. And then you can give a description of this. You could list out the bullet points of what's included, whatever you need to do to describe the service. And then you can adjust the quantity, the price. So if your price is by the hour, you would set your hourly rate here and adjust the quantity to the number of hours. Or if you're just charging by, a project or for the month, then you would usually say 1 and then say the total price, just for example, we'll say $1,000. Now, if tax is applicable, you will apply that here. So if you know that you should be charging tax depending on where you live to your clients, you can add that in here. There's also the option for discounts and then categories. So I have some different categories related to my business, and you can set those up. Those are mainly so that on the back end, you can see, for example, what percentage of your sales came from certain categories. Okay, but for the sake of this example, we're just going to have our simple test service in here, and I'll say add item. Now, at this point, there's no due date on the invoice, which is essential. So you need to have the due date on the invoice. You also need to have the client details, which, because in Dubsado, it automatically carries those over. You don't have to worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to either select if I want them to pay in full with automatic reminder emails, which is awesome, or if we need to do some sort of payment plan, or if we need to create our own payment plan. So we're just going to go this route. They're all really similar to set up. So I'll just go to add payment plan and add installment. So you would go in here and select the due date, which can be relative to, for example, after payment plan is applied to invoice. If you want to say that it is a net 30 invoice, meaning it's due 30 days after you send it to them or apply the payment plan, you can do that. You can set a fixed date, so it could be a date that you've agreed upon with your client. Or if this is something that's just in the pipeline and you don't have the due date yet, you can put to be determined on that, and that's totally fine. You can go back and update it later. So for the sake of this example, let's just say 30 days after the payment plan is applied. And I can say I want to divide this by a certain amount, or I want to make a certain percentage due on certain dates, or I'm just going to say I want 100% due, or you can make it a fixed amount. Like if you say I just need a $200 deposit on this or a $50 deposit, that's what the fixed is. It's a certain dollar amount. So you see, you've got all these options. They're all really just taking you to the same place depending on the terms that you have with your clients. So you can really go in here and customize this to your business. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set that. You can also add a reminder here. So a specific amount of days after it sends, you might say, hey, just a reminder that your invoice is due on this date, or you can tell it to send emails after the due date so that they, for example, don't get any late fees. So all these features are super awesome. Okay, so I'm going to save that. I'll hit save. So now I have created the invoice. Now it's time to send it to the client. So I'm going to say send. I can send it via email. I can copy the link. If you open it in a new window, which let's just go ahead and do that so you can see how this generates, it's going to give you the test client. I didn't put any business information in there for the test client, but normally it would have their business name, their address, maybe a phone number as well. You do need to have that information on your invoices, and then you'll see the payment terms. And this is what I love about Dubsado. The client can come in here and pay now. And this says pay with e-check, which is ACH debit, which I'll get into in a minute. But whatever payment methods you have set up is what your client will be able to access just by simply clicking the pay now button. So if you send them that link, that's exactly what you're sending them. Like if you want to write them out an email, or I can say send via email, and I just have, again, my test client in here, and it generates an email. You can customize this, and when they click this button, it will take them to the invoice. So super easy to use and lots of features that are amazing for freelancers and service providers in general. If you're wondering, Dubsado does not charge any payment processing fees or take a cut of any of your payments or anything like that. The only fees that you would pay are those associated with your payment processor. So if you're using PayPal or Stripe or Square, which Dubsado integrates into all of those, then you would be paying their fees, which usually is somewhere between 2 and 3%. However, another reason that I love Dubsado is because they have an ACH debit transfer option, which basically means your clients are making an ACH payment, which is their bank connecting to your bank and sending the money, which is like a digital wire transfer. And the fees associated with this are much lower. So usually you're paying no more than like $5 in fees, no matter the size of the invoice. And of course, if you prefer to be paid by check, you can arrange that with your clients as well. And when you get that payment, whether it's a check payment or a cash payment, you can mark that as paid in Dubsado. That way, everything is still centralized and organized in your account. And you can decide which payment methods you want to accept when you set up your account. Now remember, Dubsado is free for your first 3 clients, so you can really try it out and get a feel for the features. And if you sign up using my link in the description below, you'll get 20% off your first month or year after you grow beyond those first few clients. If you found this video helpful, make sure that you hit like and subscribe, and also hit the bell so that you get notified when I drop new episodes every Wednesday. Thanks so much for watching and listening. I will see you all next week.